Good evening, everyone. You are watching a massive effort. It is being billed as one of the most massive building projects ever to come to eastern Kentucky. This is the Jimmy Carter Work Project and Habitat for Humanity's Hammering in the Hills. We are in Pikeville, Kentucky this evening for a very special program. We're going to be talking about housing in rural Kentucky. Our guest, former President Jimmy Carter, and the volunteers here on this edition of Issues and Answers, the Mountain Edition.
Issues and Answers, the Mountain Edition, sponsored by Citizens National Bank and Trust of Hazard, Cardinal Automotive Group, Hazard, Appalachian Regional Healthcare, ARH Home Services, Wolf and Farmer, Attorneys at Law, Inez Deposit Bank, Kentucky Community Crafts, and East Kentucky Leadership Foundation.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks very much for being with us to Issues and Answers, the Mountain Edition. Our guest this evening is Jimmy Carter, former president. And Mr. Carter, Mr. President, thanks very much for being with us.
Good to be with you and all the folks in eastern Kentucky.
Yeah, you were telling me before we went on the air that you'd actually been into eastern Kentucky beforehand, but it was only a quick fly-through, I guess.
Well, that's right. But we've heard a lot about it the last year since we started planning this Hammering in the Hills project. And the last 2 days we've had a chance to go around and visit all 8 of our projects. 1 in northern Tennessee and 7 of them in the mountains over here. And then late yesterday afternoon, after we got through work on our house, we went down in one of the coal mines about 3,800 feet down and really had an exciting time there.
Is that the first time you've ever been underground in the coal mine?
I went once before, again, in the campaign, just for publicity purposes. But I had a chance yesterday to learn as much as possible in a short period of time about coal mining, and we went all the way to the face and talked to the miners.
Did it make you glad you were a politician and stuff?
Well, I think I let it go peanuts, yeah, but I was really filled with admiration for the technological advances and the safety precautions that seem to be so prevalent there.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts when you were first informed that you were going to be coming to Appalachia and being a part of this project, because most of the work has been in the urban areas.
Well, Rosa and I wanted to come to Appalachia much earlier because we knew the great need here and we wanted to have a chance to come to this region. But we can't go to a site for a big project like this, building 52 houses in 1 week, unless there's a solid base of Habitat local organizations there. And it took Habitat a good while to get started here in eastern Kentucky. And so, and then we planned 3 years ahead of time. For instance, next year we'll be in Houston, Texas. The following year we'll be in the Philippines. And so those are the reasons we were here so late. But the attraction and the need for housing in eastern Kentucky has been apparent to me and Rosen for a long time.
You come from a rather modest background, in a rural area also, so I'd imagine, would that play an influence in your desire to see the housing?
Well, I feel much more at home here, of course, I do in the ghetto areas of Philadelphia and New York and Los Angeles and San Diego and Miami, other places where we've already built houses. And I grew up, as a farm boy, and we didn't have any running water in our house. We didn't have electricity till I was 14 years old.
What was that like for you?
Well, it was great then. I didn't know any different. We didn't have any. Even at our schoolhouse, we didn't have electricity in the schoolhouse, and except in one room where the auditorium was, we had plays and things at night. So it was just like breathing for me. It wasn't anything different from what I knew since I was born. Sure.
You were one of the few politicians, to actually profess your faith in Christ, not to be, you didn't, that was in the front. It was not placed in the back. You didn't shy away from it. Why do you believe that there are not more politicians who do that?
It may be a little easier since John Kennedy had such a hard time being a Catholic, and since I had a hard time being a born-again Baptist. I think that it's easier now for politicians to admit their faith, or sometimes they have to apologize for not having faith. But I never did deviate from my Baptist roots of separating completely state and church. So although Richard Nixon would have highly publicized religious services in the White House on Sundays, I didn't think that was, right. So we went to church at the First Baptist, which is very near the White House. And then when we went to Camp David on the weekends, we had an Army chaplain come in and we had a kind of a private service every Sunday morning. So we kind of kept completely separate the public job that I had and my own private faith.
I asked that question because this project, as you well know, it has a religious underlying tone to it, and it is. I've heard people say it's a spiritual awakening for some of them. That they even.
I think this has changed people's lives in an awareness that there are some practical and very useful things that we can do, copying the life of Christ, who reached out to people in need, who showed compassion, and who actually did something.
And who was a carpenter.
And who was a carpenter, right. Instead of just talking about it and preaching, because preaching and talking is very good. But it's very difficult for rich people, like me and you, everybody who has a good house and a good job and a good education and health care, to be able to break down the barrier between us and people who are really in need. Mm-hmm. I would guess that most of the people who are watching this program maybe not even know a poor person. You know, and this is a very wonderful way for us to put our Christian faith into practical use. We also have, Jews and others who work with us in Habitat. So it's not exclusive at all, and we don't ever ask the homeowners what their religious faith is. We let the local affiliates, we call them, choose the homeowner families. They have to be willing, by the way, to put in 500 hours of hard work on their own houses, on the house site, and they have to pay full price for the house. The only thing that we give them is love and companionship, and they don't have to pay interest. So it makes the monthly payments quite reasonable, even for someone with a low income.
Do they get to design their own home, or is there a certain design?
The local committee always decides the basic structure that we build. What kind of materials to use, obviously this varies from place to place. If they don't have any lumber in a country or in a community, we don't use wood like this as much. And then the size of the house, the configuration, how it fits in with the neighborhood, all those things are decided by our local committee. And then we also let the local Habitat committee members choose the homeowners. So they have to be living in substandard housing, they have to be willing to work the hours if they're not afflicted in some way, and they have to be willing to make the payments.
A few miles away in Martin County, Kentucky, Lyndon Johnson declared the war on poverty back in the 60s.
Yes.
Housing and poverty go hand in hand, of course.
Yeah.
Is that a winnable war?
Well, it's a winnable war. But the unfortunate thing is that since I left the White House, and since President Ford and President Nixon left the White House as well, every dollar that we spent on public housing for low-income working families, the federal government now only appropriates 7 cents. So there's been a 93% reduction in federal support for homes for low-income families who are at work. That leaves a devastating vacuum. And but to say that everybody deserves and needs and will have someday a decent home, I don't think is idle talk. 2 weeks ago I was in the Netherlands, in Holland, and I met with the Habitat organization there, and they said we don't need any homes in Holland. Every family in the Netherlands, which is Holland, has a nice home. But we are organized as a Habitat affiliate to raise money to send to other nations where they don't have decent houses. So I think if Holland can provide a decent home for all their citizens, I don't see why America can't.
What's the problem? Where does it start at?
Well, one problem is what I just described to you. The federal government not only has been afflicted by the enormous deficits that Ronald Reagan created, all the way from George Washington until I left office, we had less than $1 trillion in debt. But after Reagan had been in office only 8 years, we had $4 trillion in debt. And that enormous debt that now hangs around the necks of all of our politicians that restrains them is one cause of not having good programs for housing, health, welfare, and so forth, education. But the other thing is there's a much more, I think, hard-hearted trend in government now. There's a sense that if somebody is in need, somebody doesn't have a job, or someone has a low income, that they must not be worthy or competent. But we work side by side with families. This is our 15th year. And we find that they're just as intelligent, just as hardworking, just as dedicated, just as ambitious, just have as high family values as Rosa and I do. But we underestimate people who might be making a low income. And so I think this is something that's caused this real need and this lack of complete success.
We're going to have to wrap this up very quickly, but one quick question, and that is, when you leave this project, do you always leave the project with something that you never had when you came?
Absolutely. I never have left a project yet, I don't believe, without shedding tears of joy and emotion. It's almost impossible to describe how families, like our homeowner families, feel. All their lives, in most cases, they've been promised things they didn't get. They hear wonderful programs like the Great Society programs under Lyndon Johnson, and then still nothing improves. Well, we tell them in advance, we're going to start building your house Monday morning, and Friday afternoon you can move in your house. And they don't believe it. And then to see it realized, and tomorrow afternoon we'll be moving our family's furniture in this house. It's an emotional experience because it transforms their lives. It makes them a proud possessor of a house that they own completely themselves and which they have helped to build. So that's really an emotional experience for us.
Mr. President, it's an honor.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks very much for being with us tonight.
Well, I've enjoyed
Yes.
my whole visit here.
Thank you. Let's go to Carol Butcher standing by with some volunteers.
Thanks, Tony. And you know, none of this could be possible without the efforts of more than 1,300 volunteers that are here today in Eastern Kentucky. And one of those volunteers who is with me today is Ray Milam. Ray, tell me, what is your position here with Habitat for Humanity?
I'm president of Sunny Valley Habitat.
Okay, and how long have you been doing this?
This is my 5th year.
Okay, and how did you get started? I know it's been a while. You probably have maybe had some struggles in the beginning, but this is fantastic. This is amazing projects. But tell us how you got started.
Well, originally, it started in about 92. I had seen an ad. I was born and raised at Virgie. I'd seen an ad in the local paper that they was going to try and start a habitat function here. And during my travels all over, I had observed the importance of habitat and the way that it works for people in need, so I thought I'd be part of it. So I got with some of the local people here. We had a lot of problems when we first started.
What were some of them?
Well, one of the most, I guess, most significant problems was the first step was to get all my churches involved. You know, Habitat is a Christian ministry,
right,
non-denominational. And then my next big struggle was to get the appropriate leadership. Habitat for Humanity. I know yesterday someone asked either Mr. Fuller or President Carter, what does Habitat for Humanity need most? What they need most today is local leadership. Without local leadership, the affiliates struggle, and a lot of them don't make it.
Okay, that's terrific. And you said you're president now, but you are going to be handing that over?
Yes, like you said, I've been president for 5 years. The normal procedure in all your Habitat affiliates for directors and presidents is about 3 years. And the reason I haven't turned it over, because again, back to leadership, I could not find anyone that would take the gavel.
Right.
So I found that guy, Mark White. He's the guy that's been in charge of all this construction. And so after this program is over, I'll be turning the gavel over to him.
I bet you he's really excited. Is he anxious to get started on
Yes,
it?
he is. Yes, he is. Now, the only reason he would take it is if I would stay on the board. Yes, I'm going to stay on the board. But another point I'd like to make, too, is this is great. This is a beachhead. This is what we need. But Habitat, Sunny Valley Habitat, we're going to have an ongoing program. We're hoping to build 4 to 6 houses this fall. So we'll go with our long-range plans. We hope to build 4, 6, or 8 homes a year. But one thing we have learned is the only way to do it is split bill. And I'd like to say something toward that. On straight volunteers, you announce you're going to build a house. On the first work call, you got more people you need. The next work call, maybe down to 50% of that number, then the next one you have 4 or 5. So the only way to go, and that's what we plan to do, is split bill. Do a lot of planning, have everything ready, go back out to our leadership, as I mentioned, and say we're going to blitz bill these 3-5 days, what have you, and that's where we're going to handle it.
Everybody helps at this point, right?
And then the 1,300 people that come in here, it's amazing. From all over the world, some from overseas.
Right.
That's what makes Habitat.
Right.
People helping people.
That's great. Have you got a chance to talk to some of the volunteers that have talked to some other people, you know, that are not from the state, from around the world, and what do they think about maybe working next, side next to maybe like, former President Jimmy Carter?
I have talked to some of the people that have followed Blitzbill for the last 10, 15 years. And I say this for Pike County. They have said this is one of the greatest places ever been. People are so friendly and so nice. That makes me feel good.
Right.
That's what it's all about. Mm-hmm. We have not received any negatives as far as people being mistreated. They all love it, and we've tried to take care of them, feed them and be nice to them. But they work hard that way.
That's it. Anything you'd like to add?
No, I'd just like to say that we certainly appreciate President Jimmy Carter. We love him. Mr. Millard Fuller, the founder of Habitat for Humanity. I have used so many of his tapes and programs that I have given throughout Pike County, and I was honored to meet him, sit down and have dinner with him, and talk with him. He's the greatest.
That's excellent. That's fantastic. But I really do appreciate you, Ray Milam, being here with me talking about this. As you can see, Habitat for Humanity is just an excellent cause. Hundreds and more than 1,300 volunteers here today helping to build homes, making home ownership a reality, for needy families in Eastern and Appalachia. Thank you. Back to you, Tony.
All right, Carol, thanks. I'm standing by with some more volunteers who've been up here most of the week. We have Georgia Sick, is that right? Okay. Patty, let me look at that one. Belcher? All right, and Bill Belcher and Dottie Carter. You folks have been here all this week, is that right?
Yes, we have.
You all have been manning the most important aspect of this, and that's the refreshment stand. Is that
Right, right.
Tell me a little bit about why you did it, why you came out and volunteered your time.
Well, they asked for volunteers in our church, so we volunteered every way we could. So I happened to get on the Pepsi machine.
All right. Patty,
I'm happy to do it.
Patty, you and I talked a little bit earlier, and you said it was truly amazing just to watch what's going on here.
It's wonderful. I've never seen so much love given.
Yeah. Why do you think that? I mean, that one thing can pull so many people together when we seem to be divided any time else?
Well, it seems to me that just all humanity has come together here, and that people have really just pitched in and given their very best to help people that are really in need.
Bill, what about you? When you leave this project, what are you going to take with you?
Well, satisfaction just being here to help give soft drinks out and see the people. They're all so friendly, and we just had a ball doing this.
Yeah. Dottie, the families and the workers and such, they come from all walks of life here. I guess you've got to meet some pretty interesting characters.
Oh, yes, we have. It's been very interesting. I've actually been in the first aid unit all week.
Oh, yeah?
So,
have we had any heat strokes? Or, I guess primarily you're trying to keep people from drowning in the rain.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, we've had very few injuries, a few blisters, a few pup knots, a hammer, fingers,
right, sure.
and just a very, very few minor injuries, really.
I spoke with President Carter just a few minutes ago, and he had mentioned that this has a religious undertone on it. And do you feel that feeling also when you come up here each day?
Yes, I just feel like Jesus is right here with us. Mm-hmm. It's just giving what he would have done for people that are in need.
Yeah. I asked Georgia the same question I asked Bill, and that is, when you leave this project, what do you take with you?
Well, like Bill, I think we're going to be filled with love, and we know we've done a good thing, and we're helping the people who really need help, and it just gives you a wonderful feeling, and I think it'll last for a long time.
Despite all the housing projects that's been going on here in this Habitat for Humanity blitz, there still remains a countless number of people who still suffer from substandard housing. Let's learn more in this report. The sight of water coming out of a faucet in her home brings a smile to the face of Patricia Blocker. Patricia and her family live in this mobile home and have gone for almost 2 years without running water.
When you have to carry water for a bath and to flush your commode and to wash on your hands and to cook, everything, it's hard.
The Blockers were able to obtain water through financial help provided by the Christian Appalachian Project.
Sometimes it's not a matter of picking and choosing, but it's the ones that have the most needs. And with this situation, there's children involved, and I can only imagine what it's like to be there having to go to school and not be able to have running water in the house.
A few miles away, Martha Smith is not so lucky yet to see running water in her home. Smith utilizes this tub donated by a church to catch rainwater for her purposes.
I don't know what a hot bath is like. I heat all my water.
Jackie Harrison, and she is with Pikeville Methodist Hospital and the outreach clinic, I guess, would be
Phelps Care Center.
Okay, tell me a little bit about that.
We opened a clinic just a little over a year ago in Phelps, Kentucky, so everybody that lives in that community and surrounding communities could receive our super services and not have to drive so far to come into Pikeville to the hospital.
What type of services do you have? All types over there that you can offer where you wouldn't have to drive to
That's
the
right.
hospital?
That's right. We see all ages from newborns up until as elderly as you may be. We take care of any acute problems, chronic illnesses such as diabetes, hypertension, heart disease. We take care of well child care. We do school physicals, CDL physicals. We do everything you would need. We can do it right there at the clinic.
Tell me a little bit about being out here for you today. Why here today?
Well, this is my second day here this week, and it has just been such a wonderful experience. It's the first thing I told my husband when I went home Monday night was I couldn't believe the people. Everybody was getting along just wonderfully and working hard, and you didn't hear anybody fussing or anything hateful. And it's, of course, the whole basis for it is of course, Christian atmosphere, and it's so wonderful to know that so many people can come from around the United States and out of the country and still have the same focus and all work together in such a wonderful way.
What's been your job here? Have you been actually doing carpentry, or are you just kind of the assistant?
No, I don't think they'd want me doing any carpentry. No, I am doing medical. I'm here with first aid with the hospital. We are sponsoring the first aid station here, so we've taken care of some injuries.
Any problems?
Nothing serious that I have had to deal with, thank goodness, and we don't want any. We don't want any injuries. So
all right. It's a pleasure talking with you. Thanks very much. Okay, thank you very much. As the Jimmy Carter Work Project wraps up this week, we're going to leave you now with some sights and sounds from the week, and what a week it was. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again next week on Issues and Answers, the Mountain Edition.
But it's quite often difficult for people like me, like all of you, to find another family that really is in need, where you can break down the barriers between us and work side by side with them to give them a good life. So that's what Habitat does.
The impact that this event is having on the homeowners is the most significant thing that happens here. Because after all, that's what we're doing, is building houses for families. And when we see how those families respond to this incredible event in their lives, typically with shouts of joy, with tears, with emotion expressed in various ways, it fills my heart with great joy.
The reason I wanted to do this is because of their love for Habitat for Humanity. See, they met in Hungary, and then they came here and they wanted to be married as part of this great ministry to people. I think that Habitat for Humanity is like the church in action.
Good job. Carry on there. You'll have a square.
I know, well, he's an expert.
That's nice. Ooh. Nice.
Help build a home for our family. Join Habitat for Humanity.
Issues and Answers, the Mountain Edition. Sponsored by Citizens National Bank and Trust of Hazard, Cardinal Automotive Group, Hazard, Appalachian Regional Healthcare, ARH Home Services, Wolf and Farmer, Attorneys at Law, Inez Deposit Bank, Kentucky Community Crafts, and East Kentucky Leadership Foundation.